When John Frusciante was 18, he joined the Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of the most famous bands in the world. He did that all by himself. Imagine what he could have done with ISM. Hi, I'm Carol Gonzalez, and this year I am an ISM 2 student studying music composition and production. Last year I was an ISM 1 student and I studied environmental studies, which I still loved, and I still love the environment, and I still am all for recycling, but I just decided I wanted to do music composition and production a little bit more than I wanted to pursue environmental studies. So my mission statement this year was to become more knowledgeable about music production, theory, and performance under the guidance of a musical professional. I hope to not only better my technique and knowledge about my main instrument, which is a guitar, but I also hope to learn more about different instruments. And I hope this will prepare me for college, as I am planning to be studying music. So composition is kind of just a fancy word for writing music. So I'm in a band called Manifest Destiny's Child, and I have to write music a lot because of my band. So I've kind of been exposed to that side of my ISM topic. Here is a couple. Okay. Can you turn up the volume? Sorry. Yeah, there it is. So that's just a little snippet from one of our shows we played in like October. And then the week before school started, we went and we got our music professionally recorded, and that's kind of what enticed me to kind of follow production, because I just kind of saw him record, and he would explain it to us as we were recording, and he was explaining what he was doing, and it was just really fascinating to me, and I really liked it. So I decided to kind of follow that. So this is a little snippet of our stuff we recorded before school. Yeah. So my first interview I went on was with Saxon Lewis. I've known Saxon for about 2.5 years. He's a teacher at School of Rock, which is something I used to go to, like an after-school program to kind of teach you music, I guess. And he's in 2 bands, Ether After and Post Palace. I got the chance to play with Post Palace over the summer, and I got the chance to see Ether After also over the summer, and they were just amazing. He's an amazing instrumentalist. He plays a lot of stuff, actually. He plays the guitar, bass, drums, piano. He sings. He plays the euphonium and tuba. And as I said, he's a teacher of School of Rock, and he's one of the most sought-after teachers because he's just so knowledgeable about everything. So he teaches everything. And he also really exposed me to the Dallas music scene. I'm more familiar, I play more shows and play with bands who are more in the Denton music scene, so I don't really play in Dallas. And he kind of explained how different Dallas is from Denton, because he is kind of in both. My next interview was with John Tipton. He's in the Heavy Hands, which I also got a chance to play with over the summer. And he does a lot of solo work. He's the person in like restaurants who has the acoustic guitar and is like singing. So he does that all by himself. And he taught me the importance of independence and responsibility. He does everything himself. He books all his shows himself. He has to put himself out there. He doesn't have anyone helping him. So with that, independence comes a lot of responsibility. And he told me he pays his bills just by playing music. He doesn't have a side job. He solely just plays music. And he wants to get to the point where he's playing his own music and paying his bills with his own music. And he's also in the Dallas music scene. My third interview was with Bruce Falconer. He's the owner of Cake Mix Production, which is a record studio in Dallas. He's also a composer. He's the one who wrote all the music behind Dragon Ball Z, and he's classically trained, which is, the other two were not. They just kind of learned by themselves. So it was really different seeing someone who was classically trained, because as I mentioned before, I'm going to be planning to study music. So it was very cool to see how he turned out with being classically trained. My fourth interview was with Matthew Medlock. He's the owner of Legacy Music Group, which is a record studio in Deep Ellum. He mainly does more rap and hip hop, but it was still very beneficial to go on an interview with him. And he's strictly music business. He knows how to play a little bit of piano, but other than that, he's strictly music business, which is something I never thought I would be interested in. I never wanted to do anything with business or like sit in a cubicle or anything like that. But the way he showed it to me was very interesting and actually kind of made me consider it for a little bit. And my fifth interview was with Brat Cantrell. He's another teacher at School of Rock, and he also plays everything. He's the one who actually taught me how to play drums and kind of encouraged me to kind of keep on doing that. And in my band, I have a couple songs where I play drums, so it really helped. And he actually did the exact same thing I want to do. He went to UNT for music, which I'm doing, and he majored in music, which is just in general, with and he played classical guitar in the music in like UNT, and you have to like pick an instrument. So I also am doing classical guitar at UNT and majoring in music in general. And he's the first person I ever figured out that had done the exact same thing. So he gave me a lot of tips and stuff, and he told me it was going to be really, really hard, just balancing that with like playing, and you also have to have like another job to kind of help you through college, and just everything would be really hard to balance. But if you're really dedicated and if you're really passionate about this, and this is something you should definitely pursue. My sixth interview was with Todd Cottom. He's the owner of 50/50 Studios in Dallas as well. And he introduced me to the idea of trade school for recording. I'd never thought to just go to school for recording and not go to a bigger university, but he told me that some of the engineers that he works with did that, and it helped them so much more than going to music school or school for like business or something. So I really considered that for a point, but I decided not to do that. And my seventh and final interview was with Eric Delegard. He's producer, engineer, and owner of Real Time Audio, which is a studio in Denton. He's actually my mentor, and he taught me the importance of being able to do everything. I told him going into the interview that I was still a musician and I still loved writing, but I wanted to explore the producing side, and he told me that there was no reason that I shouldn't be able to do all of them. I could still, own a studio, record people, but still play shows with my band and write music, which is something I was kind of worried about at first, but he told me I could do it, and I've been doing it. So for my original work, I wrote an EP with 5 songs total. 4 of them are more prog, and one of them is just like a classic rock song. And it's a concept album, which is like an album that has a story going along with all the songs. And each song was written in the style of someone else. So I have like one song written like David Gilmour, who's the guitarist of Pink Floyd, and then I have another one with actually Saxon, the guy I interviewed. So the first song is called Journey to the Gates of Candyland. One of my favorite bands ever is the Mars Volta, and he's a guitarist for that band. And the chorus, I wanted to just have this song be like him, and he's in 2 bands, the Mars Volta and At the Drive-In. So I had the chorus be like one of his bands and the verse be another one of his bands, and it kind of just all sounds like him. And I actually wrote the chorus like 6 months ago before I started my product. I wrote it for another band, and then that band broke up. And I still kept that chorus because I really liked it, and it ended up being really beneficial to this. My second song is called Feminist Princess Don't Need Saving. This one I wanted to do in the style of Saxon Lewis, the guy I interviewed before. He's been super influential to me also. He really helped me. He's been there from the start when I didn't know how to play guitar, and he's helped me now. And so it's just been amazing to have him help me along the whole journey. And this one was the hardest one to record because it was so fast, and I had to play really fast, and it was some crazy shreddy stuff, and because that's what Saxon plays, and so it was really hard. It took me 2 or 3 days just to get the guitar part down. So, and the ending is actually from one of my band's songs. I just thought it kept the concept of the album going really well, so I wanted it to be there to kind of help guide the album. The third song is called Wicked Witch of the West. This one is inspired by Adrian Belew. He's the guitarist of King Crimson, and this is a noise prog song. And my band, Manifest Destiny's Child, is more noise prog, so this one was pretty easy to write, just because I kind of was almost thinking about writing for my band, and then this came out, and then I realized it sounded like Adrian Belew, so I kept it like that. This one's my favorite also. And then the fourth song is called Outside the Wall. So as I mentioned before, this is a concept album, and my favorite concept album of all time is The Wall by Pink Floyd. And so I wanted to have, this is the last song on the EP, so I wanted to have it be named the same as the last song on Pink Floyd's The Wall, so it's called Outside the Wall. This one is more John Frusciante and Dustin Fleming inspired. John Frusciante, as I mentioned, was the guitarist for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he's one of my favorite guitarists. And Dustin Fleming was one of my first teachers at School of Rock, and he really helps me kind of start figuring out what style I wanted to do. And I wrote this song, most of this song, for my band, and I kind of showed it to them, and they didn't really like it. They didn't want to keep it, so I still really liked it, and I still kept it for my final, or original work. And this is also a noise prog song. That's why I said it was a lot easier to write. And then the last song is called Final Ode. I wrote the chorus for this for another band, but the band that broke up, but I still really liked it, so I kept it. And this is the only one with lyrics, because I didn't want the whole album to have lyrics, because I felt like that would give away the concept of the album, and I don't ever really write lyrics, so I wanted it to be more of a special thing, so I only had it on this one song. And my band member and best friend Sabrina sings on this one, and the vocals and the guitar are very Led Zeppelin inspired, so it's Robert Plant and Jimmy Page. I didn't want to have a song where two things were inspired by the same person, but I just really couldn't resist because they go so well together. So, my mentorship, as I mentioned, my mentor is Eric Delegard. He's the owner of Real Time Audio. There was another band in Denton that I really looked up to, and I really liked the way their music sounded, so I texted that guy and asked him who he recorded with, and he told me he recorded with Eric. And I just kind of kept that in the back of my mind. I was aware of it, but I didn't really go after it. And then on an interview with John Tipton, one of the guys I interviewed, he told me I should reach out to Eric Delegard because he's amazing, he's a really good recorder, he's really nice, you know. So I reached out to him, and I interviewed him, and I really liked him, and so we started a mentorship. And so our mentor visits go either one of two ways. A band or someone comes in, and I watch him record. He kind of tells me what he's doing as he's doing it and why he's doing it. Or it's just us, me and him, and I ask him questions and he answers, and that leads to other discussions. Or he tells me and teaches me something that he really thinks is beneficial for me to learn. And I've been exposed to so many bands throughout our mentorship, such as War Bonnets, Drew's Peace Crush, the Ransom Roads, the Gary McGrath Project, and so many more. And being in this mentorship has really exposed me to all sides of Denton. I was only familiar with the noise, prog, punk, psychedelic type of music in the Denton music scene, because that's really what my band plays. But I found out that there's a whole country scene that I didn't even know was there, a jazz scene, a folk scene, you know, a bunch of different stuff I didn't even know was there. But through the mentorship and through seeing bands and people come in, I was totally exposed to that. So, for my final product, I wanted to do something that incorporated composition and production. Through my mentorship, I do more of the production side. I watch him record and produce, and I haven't really been exposed to much composition because he doesn't, you know, he's a producer, he doesn't really write. So I wanted to do something that kind of evened out the field and had more of composition. So what I decided to do was do something that, you know, not a lot of other people have done. I wanted to dive deep into what a composer does, and I realized a composer does two things. They write a song with a purpose, and they write it with a deadline. So, the person who wrote the song on the SPCA commercial, they want to make you cry. You know, they're trying to evoke that emotion out of you. And the person who wrote, you know, the jingle for McDonald's, they want you to be happy and excited. They want you to go get a cheeseburger or whatever. So that's what I decided to do. I'm writing an album with, I think it's 7 songs, and each song is trying to evoke a different emotion out of you. And I realized that's exactly what a composer does. You know, I'm writing with a purpose and with a deadline. So I didn't want the lyrics or the title to give it away, so I'm having the lyrics be like completely different because I don't want it to be very obvious of which song it is. I want you to be able to like feel what it is. So the emotions I'm using are happy, sad, fearful, angry, like a melancholy reflective mood where you kind of just like really think, and excited. And I realized it was a lot easier to have each song paired with the genre. So the happy song I picked is going to be very funky, like Earth, Wind & Fire, Jimi Hendrix inspired. The sad song is more like art rock, like Warpaint. The fearful song is very like noise crazy, like some local Denton bands I know. The angry song is like punk, like Rage Against the Machine or the Dead Kennedys. The melancholy reflective is more indie, slightly prog, so I was thinking maybe like Mac DeMarco or Pink Floyd again. And the excited song, to get you like really pumped up, I was thinking like 80s rap or like maybe a little bit of pop. So I gave myself all of April to record, mix, and master everything. I wanted to have everything, all my writing done by the time I got to April. And for the most part, I did that. All of my songs are written. But as I started to record, I've realized that I can't, like, I wrote a song, but then I'll, like, record, and then I'll think of something else. And then I realized the writing never stops. Like, I always, want to add new things or take something away or kind of mix things up. So some of the things I've been learning while doing my final project, the first one, I wanted to use one guitar to be able to get all of the different tones. As I mentioned, there's a bunch of different genres I'm trying to express through this, and it's really hard to use just one single guitar to get all of those. I have to get punk, but I also have to get funk and pop, and I'm doing that with one guitar. So this guitar I recently bought is perfect for that, and I've been really having to like adjust tones, even tones I don't like. I'm having to kind of get it there to get the genre I wanted. That's been really hard, but it's been really helping me like diversify what I can play and how I can play. And it's really showed me the struggle of a composer. It's really, really hard to write with a deadline and like with a purpose. I'm more used to writing, just like whatever I want, whatever comes into my mind, I'll write it. But writing, trying to make something sound happy has been really hard for me, or like exciting, trying to get people pumped up. Those types of songs have been a lot harder than like writing the sad and fearful ones, I guess. And I've also realized that composing, I don't want to continue doing that in college, just because I didn't like writing with a deadline and writing with a purpose. I like it to just kind of like come out freely out of me. So I don't want to pursue that in college, which is something I'm so glad I realized. And I also learned producing takes years to learn. You can learn the basics in like maybe a couple months, but developing your own producing style takes a really long time, figuring out what you like and what you don't like and what you want to mix together with certain people. It takes a really long time to learn. So even though I did this mentorship and I had so much fun, I still have to continue doing this for a really long time until I can really kind of get the hang of it. So for my conclusion, I wanted to leave you guys with this quote that really inspires me and really motivates me to continue to play music. So, Plato once said, "Music is a moral law. It gives soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and charm and gaiety to life and everything." Thank you.